Yeah, so I'm a classical theist, and when I
Mhm.
talk about God, the relevant modality I'm speaking of is metaphysical modality. Now, metaphysical
Yeah.
modality is kind of nuanced, right? And there's a lot of ways to do it. There's like the essentialist way, the conceivability way. Um, and why I think the essentialist way is the proper way is just gonna be just some thing by given facts and some process of elimination. Like conceivability is very vague, and then when I hear modal talk, when people are talking about metaphysical modality, they typically talk about properties, so it just seems like, given all the relevant facts about metaphysical modality and how people talk about it, essentialist, like an essentialist account, like I don't know, I think it's like Lowe's account best matches how we talk about metaphysical modality, if you'd be fine granting that.
I don't think that I'm fine granting that, mostly because the sort of discourse on modal metaphysics isn't at all unified, and it's not clear to me that given all the relevant facts, that modal, like the essentialist accounts of modality, like are the ones to be preferred. And even among like people who are essentialists, there are people who think that metaphysical modality has certain features of essentialism is important to it, but that you don't there's accounts of like that involve essences, but what grounds possibility and necessity is actually more basic and fundamental than the essences themselves. And I might be wrong, but I think Kit Fine is someone who has like sort of pointed something like this out. It might be wrong, it might not be Kit Fine. And also you mentioned all the relevant facts, but I don't know what you're including within that sort of collection of facts. Like, what do you exactly mean by all the relevant facts, and what are those facts, and how is it such that they point towards essentialism, like an essentialist account of metaphysical modality, where I'm assuming the sort of priority of what's possible, like possibility and necessity, is the essences, and it's not going to be the other way around, where what's more fundamental is possibility and necessity.
Well, I know it's not some unified thing in the literature, which is why I said it's more nuanced. So I just went through some process of elimination, but I know just simply going through some process of elimination is going to be sufficient in itself for like knowledge of modal epistemology. And when I said relevant facts, I just meant like what I think a relevant fact is just typically our, you could say, our folk language about how we talk about metaphysical modality. And if not that, then it's just gonna kind of be primitive. But I think, when regarding some like fundamental thing or modal talk, I don't think we should like say it can't be reduced down to anything. It just seems there's no reduction past that. And then like when we eliminate uh what people typically talk about, the other options are vague, and essentialism just best matches. And just
Yeah.
just to get this clear, when I was saying like the relevant facts, I just mean like how we talk, right? Like how we
Okay.
talk. But to answer the Kit Fine stuff, right?
Wait,
um
before you get that, there was a
yeah,
point that you made. I guess I don't want to like put too many points on the table.
it's fine.
And I don't know, maybe there are already some, but like I guess maybe we can talk about this point first. Because the claim is, at least on the table so far, that an essentialist account of metaphysical modality best accounts for at least maybe some sort of folk usage. One, I'm skeptical that there is quote unquote folk usage, because folk is typically a term that's taken to talk about non-philosophers when people are talking about technical terms in philosophy or technical positions in philosophy. And metaphysical modality isn't some sort of a colloquial term that people are using even like among non-philosophers. Metaphysical modality is something that is talked about not just among philosophers, but a limited subsection of philosophers that study modal metaphysics. And the relevant subfields that are relevant to modal metaphysics. And it's not clear among the relevant people who are talking about modal metaphysics and using that sort of language that it best is captured by an essentialist account. And again, that's the claim on the table, that it is best accounted for. And then so there would have to be, maybe, and especially since I take it that this is an empirical point about how language is used and what account of metaphysical possibility and necessity best matches that. Like that's then you have to like kind of pair the two together, show that one account of metaphysical modality that's used by, people who talk about it, which is, I think the wide majority of the, representative sample of people talking about this stuff is philosophers, that it is an essentialist based account that's like best captures it. But yeah, I don't know. I maybe want you to kind of address that before we kind of go further.
Yes, I just think this can be addressed by clarifying what I meant by folk. By folk, I don't necessarily mean normal people. I just mean non-philosophers. Now, this can just be people, who still engage with the literature. They just don't write. All I'm talking about is, it can account for people educated on the subject, people reading on the subject, just like people who debate on the subject. All I'm just saying is generally there whenever I have some experience when people talk about modal talk, specifically metaphysical modality, it just seems like they're just talking about some essentialism, or they're talking about conceivability. And I think there's like one account of metaphysical modality that I'm missing out on. I just forgot it because what I really see people talk about is like conceivability and essentialism. But yeah, I think I am missing account, but just correct me if I'm wrong there. And like when I was talking about most people, right? Well, I think I already specified that. But yeah, that's really all I mean. And then there was a point which I didn't get to make, and you don't have to address this now, so we can like linearize the conversation. About like non-modal essential counts. Yeah, I'm fine with there being accounts of essentialism which aren't modal. But I think like I can just like provide a reason or give some reason on why I think there's some we can have modal knowledge. Like essentialism can grant us like some modal knowledge for our modal epistemology after we like clear up this point.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, it seems that you're like really underselling the sort of claim that, or like the point that you're trying to make, which is to say that essentialist accounts of modality, and to be clear, there isn't any unique account of modalities. It's called an essentialist account of modality. You have to specify what the relevant details are of that modality, what sort of, rules you're using, what kind of accessibility relation holds between the different possible worlds, why we should, grant that sort of accessibility relation, how essences then go on to relate to those accessibility relations. And then you have to then argue that there are such things as essences. And I think like that all has to, like, to give this sort of account of modality, you have to do that. And then before, and that's something you have to do before you then say that this best, kind of maps onto the relevant usage of the language by people. But even that claim, that most people that you kind of come across use this language, typically seem to be doing it in a way that is representative of like essentialism. That's not my experience. That's not the experience that I have. I don't think that, at least in my sort of own experiences regarding, I don't know, discourse about modal metaphysics, that most people, the way that they're using the language is kind of either presupposing or is within the framework of an essentialist account. So, I mean, in that case, we just kind of have like different anecdotal sort of pieces of evidence that I think, I don't know, unless there is some sort of experimental study that kind of further corroborates your point. I don't know that this, at least that point kind of stands in your favor. And then before that, there is that sort of motivation that you have to give for the relevant account of modality. And then I think that there's like a third thing you kind of have to do, given that this is the strategy that you want to go way about arguing. It's that if an account of, let's say, whether it doesn't matter what kind of field in philosophy it is, if it best explains the folk usage, it's not just that you can get therefore because it best explains the folk usage that therefore this one's like most likely governing reality. I don't think that inference can be granted. I think even if I were to grant you this point, which I'm not, that the way that people use the language kind of best maps onto an essentialist account, you don't then therefore get that an essentialist account of metaphysical modality is most likely correct. Because you, like, for example, if the B theory of time is true, or some kind of B theory is true, that doesn't best capture the language that people use, because we use sort of essential indexicals when we're making certain claims about here, now, when we're referring to ourselves, I, maybe as whole objects and so on. And, that isn't best captured, let's say, by some sort of perdurantist B theory, where perdurant, that kind of identity over time or whatever. But like, it doesn't matter whether or not, like, even if A theory best captures it, it doesn't therefore grant you a point in thinking that the A theory is true. At least I don't think so. I think that it's very defeasible whether or not a theory can capture the relevant use of the language. But yeah, I don't, maybe that was quite a bit, and I could maybe narrow it down, and in case like maybe it was a bit too much, but yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just generally when you want me to define the essentialist account, well, it's gonna be just some standard, a kind of essentialism, and just you like kind of bootstrap some modal talk into it. Like roughly, it would just mean determining whether or not something is, possible by like the essential facts, and then it was like it's possible for this thing to be in a line with this property. If it doesn't violate some, the essential property of it. Sorry for the stuttering. And then for the folk language thing, well, I think generally when something has a strong correlation with folk language, I think folk language has some strong correlation with like our seemings about the world. So that's why I would take it to sort of like map on to reality. And the reason why I think this account is like the best explaining account isn't just because of folk language. That's why I like said it's going to be some process by elimination too. It's going to be like with the other accounts failing, like just failing and being vague.
Okay. Yeah. Well.
Wait. One thing, because I forgot to address something. Oh yeah, I can give the argument for essences. I just want to get that on after we finish, clarifying this point.
Okay.
Just the conversation is linear.
Yeah. Okay. And what are like? Do you have like reasons in favor of thinking that that because people have like the way that they use folk language, sure, is to some extent, kind of, I don't know that it's representative of their like philosophical seemings. I don't know that that's true. I think it's maybe representative of certain phenomenal experiences, but I don't think that those two, just because seemings are a kind of phenomenal experience, that because the way that they're using language that represents a certain kind of phenomenal experience, that it therefore entails that it's a kind of seeming. It might be, but I'm skeptical of that. But I also don't think like it's been made clear that these are like the sort of like I don't know. I don't want to take it for granted, and I'm not saying that you are taking it for granted, but I'm not taking it for granted, and I'm yet to see an argument for the claim that the way people use this language is such that it's like an essentialist sort of, it best is like fits within an essentialist framework, that an argument for that claim that goes beyond you just reporting your own experiences, because I already gave my report of my experiences, that's not the way that I see people using the relevant language. But yeah.
Okay. Just real quick, you said something about philosophical and phenomenal seemings. I would just like to know, what a philosophical, what you would take a philosophical seeming to be, and then what's the relevant, I don't say making, but just like kind of like keep it as this language. Like, what's the relevant making distinction between a philosophical distinction and phenomenal distinction? And I can provide some reasons to believe it, I can provide some reasons for like the whole modal talk and essentialist best fitting thing, but I just want to know what your experience is again, because I kind of forgot that.
Well, you're the one that mentioned that you take it that the way that people use folk language is in some sense, maybe not in all cases, but at least in some cases, representative of their seemings. Now, I took that term that you used, and I'm saying that I presume that there would be a distinction between seemings that you have versus there just being phenomenal experiences. Maybe it's not the case that they're different. but that would depend on the way that you're understanding seemings, because the argument doesn't rest on how I understand seemings. It rests on how you're understanding seemings. And so you would need to tell me what you mean by seemings, and maybe there is no disagreement on what that is, But I would assume that presumably the sense of seemings that you're talking about when it comes to folk language is one that goes beyond just ordinary sort of experiences, like me reporting that I can see a pen in front of me. That's a sort of phenomenal experience that I have, but that's different from having like a philosophical seeming, at least presumably. I'm just taking those sort of terms right now. Just I'm using them loosely, but maybe there isn't a difference given the way that you understand them. Because I just took the term the way that you used it, and their argument rests on the way that you understand the relevant.
Oh yeah, by seeming I just mean anything, and like just anything, and just like, yeah, by seeming I just mean things you can like just pick out in the world and just correspond it to some belief. I guess it wouldn't be really distinct from a phenomenal seeming by the way you put it loosely.
I'm sorry, I got a call. Could you? I didn't get that point.
Oh yeah, by seeming, all I mean is just something in the world that you can pick out and correspond it to some belief. I guess it's not that different from the meaning of the phenomenal seeming you laid out.
Okay, so you think that the relevant phenomenal content that people have is representative of the way that they use language, and that might be true, but why should that have any philosophical significance?
Right, and by philosophical significance,
I mean, because by philosophical significance, I mean significance to the relevant. I mean, we can narrow it down to the discussion that we're having to not generalize. But let's say, what sort of significance does that have to corroborating the claim that, like, when people use this term, that they are using, like, or not this term, but like, a set of terms that corresponds to, making claims about, metaphysical modality, why that is best, captured by an essentialist account. Like, why is it such that, well, one, I still feel like we're moving too far ahead, because right now we're talking about, because I provided pushback on the claim that people use language in such a way that, regarding their seemings, that they talk about possibility and necessity in such a way that, it's talking about an essentialist account. And right now you're trying to provide, like a defense, so to speak, to the claim that they are using the language in that way, to capture this sort of sense. But I'm not even sure that it, to begin with, it's true, because my point first about, reporting my own experience about how people use the language, that hasn't been at all addressed. And the only reason I brought that up was just because it parallels a symmetry between the claim that you made about your reporting your own experiences. And this is like an empirical claim about the way people use language. And it's not, it just hasn't been made. I think maybe the best way to go about it is to first, I guess, try to get the claim on the table and justify the claim on the table that the way people are using the term is such that they're using it in this way, regardless. And we could put aside for now, regardless, of their phenomenal content, whether or not it matches and so on, blah, blah, blah. We can put that aside. I just want to see right now first the reasons in favor of thinking that they are using language in this way to begin with.
Okay, yeah, great. I'm glad we can move, because like the seeming things was kind of like my first basis to lead into this. But yeah, we can get on to the language and folklore talk, right?
Yeah.
And just keep in mind about the whole conjunct stuff I brung up earlier. It's just like I want to go over, like, first I think would be important to go over wait, can I know, I want to like draw between, like, I would like to draw between, your experiences and my experiences, so I can just like
Yeah.
make some methodology. So can you reestablish your experiences again? Sorry.
Well, the claim that I made was just that, well, it was in response to the claim you made. And the claim you made was just that the way that you have seen and you said the folk, and by folk you just meant people who aren't maybe writing on this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, that are talking about modal metaphysics. The way that they use it is you typically, best fits within the framework of an essentialist account. And my response to that was that the way that I have seen the terms used and have you seen people talk about that, don't make that sort of either assumption or presupposition or rely on that sort of framework. And that's just a report of my experiences. And so what I'm saying is that we have both of these claims on the table, and none of them, at least, just giving a report of them doesn't make one claim like more reliable or more, representative of the, because we're talking about a sample set of the whole set of claims that are being made. And the sample set that I'm putting forth is, my own experiences. And then the sample set you're putting forth is your own experiences. And all I'm saying is that both of these taken together, they're conflicting, and they're not going to be enough to be representative of the entire collection of the relevant claims to corroborate the claim that you're making.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I know that your experiences like don't lean towards some people talking about some essentialist account. Obviously, I just mean like if they were like purporting some other account, like a conceivability account, or they're like speaking complete gibberish is what I'm asking. It's like was there any like account they were given, or were they just like
No, I
gibberish?
think. Well, I think for a lot of people, they didn't have a clear account in mind. They would say something like metaphysically possible, and then when sometimes it wouldn't even be clear, because sometimes they wouldn't go down to that level, because sometimes people would just make claims about what's metaphysically possible or necessary without then further giving a background, framework from which they were working from to make such modal claims. And so, like, there were some people that would, let's say, give arguments for the existence of God that would talk about metaphysical possibility, or they would talk about, certain conceivability, or like certain like arguments, like there's like, modal arguments for like dualism or whatever. But they wouldn't specify the account of like possibility at hand. They would say it's metaphysical, but they wouldn't then claim on further claim that it was, like an essentialist or whatever. And for me, like those experiences, like weren't working within the framework of essentialism, and it was just indeterminate, at least in those cases. And then there was other cases where I would hear people, they would give like an account, let's say they were giving some argument for God, and then when they would get pushed back on this sort of claim, they would just like say like they didn't know what account they were working with because they hadn't really like read the relevant literature. They didn't even know what like metaphysical modality was. And like that would happen in discussions that I would have with people, and discussions I would see other, people that I know have with other people. They just like they would just not know, or they would just like kind of avoid the question being asked. So like, I don't know, it might have been indeterminate. They may not have been a fact of the matter about what kind of framework was like being worked with. I mean, if there wasn't, I don't know, in a lot of the cases, there wasn't claims being made about what the framework was. And so like, I think from that, there wasn't a fact of the matter as to what framework they were working with. Like if a person, like an ordinary person, makes up a claim like it's raining outside, that doesn't then commit them to the claim that, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics is true, because the way that they're using the language is committing them to that sort of claim. I'm very skeptical that when people make claims about certain, especially people who are considered folk, make certain claims that can have, robust philosophical or like scientific implications. I'm very agnostic and skeptical that those sort of claims do have those sort of committing features. And it's not clear to me that they do. And this is like something that has been brought up a lot in like the metaphysical literature. But yeah, and I'm like even more skeptical about it in this case, especially because metaphysical modality isn't even a topic that's talked about with people who like aren't, heavily into philosophy. And it's not even talked about among philosophers who aren't into like metaphysics, and especially like, I don't know. So it's like, even like if it's a subset of philosophers, and it's an even smaller subset of people outside of the academic community.
Okay. Yeah. So I need to get really clear on one thing, and then I think I can like just make an inference from there. When you said like the modal arguments for dualism, you're talking about P zombies, correct or incorrect?
For some of them, yeah. I mean, some of them, like there's a book, not book. There's an argument that's like Richard Swinburne gives in his book, "Is There a God?" But that doesn't rely on like a conceivability like based account of like P's on me.
Yeah,
Like it doesn't account, like it doesn't require the whole like 2D semantic stuff or anything.
yeah, because I know like the P zombies, I would presumably be like some conceivability thing because people do think like conceivability is like good evidence or the governing fact for metaphysical modality. But yeah, so I guess I can just now get into the whole sort of like essential to like sort of like finish like this whole section talk about metaphysical modality. I can just get into the reason why I think essentialism best matches it is because typically when we say something like could have been this way, could have been this way, under some logical modality, right? And then we just like, I don't know, say water is not H2O. People would find you to be like speaking some like fucking gibberish when you say that. And then when you just like have H2O as some essential constituent as water, then it just seems like it could have been different in that way. So that's at least why I think it matches our talk. And what was I gonna say? Maybe you could bring up some like a posteriori identity thing for that. I don't know though.
Well,
Just
I
let me
mean,
know. Just let me know if I was speaking gibberish.
no, you weren't speaking gibberish, but I think that your claims move past the claim that's essential for this argument to get off the ground, which is that people, because you were like, okay, now I'm going to move forward to show why like this like how best captures those claims in question. But we still haven't gotten to the point that people are making the relevant claims that uses language in a way that's that's captured by an essentialist account. I'm not, and there's like two distinct claims on the table. Does essentialism best capture the relevant claims about metaphysical possibility among people who are folk? That's one claim. And then there's another claim that when they're using claims about metaphysical modality, they're using it in an essentialist way. Those are two different claims, right? One is talking about the way that they're using it, and then another one is talking about what framework of metaphysical modality best captures the language. Those are two different claims, and to see, and I'm saying before we get to the point that an essentialist account best captures the language, I want to first see that the claim is substantiated that they are using metaphysical modality in a way that is like not best capture, but that it is using it in terms like it is using the relevant terms in a way that's like indicating like an essentialist based account of metaphysical modality, because that point hasn't been justified.
Yeah. So
Because it's an empirical point. Like it's more than just you saying it to me. Like I would have to see some kind of study, because whenever people make empirical claims about how language is used, especially in philosophy, they'll make like an experimental study. And I don't, and at least to my knowledge, there isn't any experimental study on folk usage about metaphysical modality. Not even possibility in general, but metaphysical modality specifically.
yeah. So like that's kind of what the whole water H2O, the like water wouldn't be H2O thing was about, is because like I thought you were just gonna grant like at face value, like most people would just say you're fucking crazy for saying that, and then it's just like I don't know, it's like under like when people say metaphysically possible, and, we bring up this water is H2O example as some like constituent thing, and someone just says some negative thing about water being H2O, like water's not H2O. It's just that I think people would look at you fucking crazy, and I would grant that there's like no empiric, like no fucking study on it, but I don't think there needs to be like this might sound insane at a first glance, but I don't really think there needs to be a study on it for me to like say like um um people would find saying water is not H2O like metaphysically is a crazy fucking thing to say, and we might not.
I want
Okay.
clarity. Yeah, I'm not trying to make a point. I just want clarity. When you say people like would think that's insane, are you talking about people in general in the wide kind of public, or are you talking about specifically the subset of people who you called folk who talk about metaphysical possibility and necessity?
This might be like a little backtracking, but I think it could be either.
Well, it has to be. Well, if it's the more general public, then I think that claim like doesn't like hold any like sort of water. Like I think most people in general don't have an understanding of what metaphysical possibility is because they're not talking about that. Like, would you grant that most people, not just like people who like philosophy, I'm talking about like most people, like we're talking about kids, adults,
Yeah.
grandparents, people in different countries. Do you think that most people talk about metaphysical possibility and necessity?
No, obviously not.
Okay. Do you think that if they make a claim that like if they were to encounter someone who told them water is not H2O and they found it crazy, do you think that they would find it, like these ordinary people, like grandparents, little kids and so on, do you think that they would find it crazy because it's like it goes against, like the fact that it's metaphysically necessary? Or do you think that they would just find it crazy because they just like think they would be telling you something like, I don't know, like my phone is not like an iPhone when it is an iPhone? Like, like, do you think it would just be like at first glance sort of a surprise? Like, I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem clear that they would be surprised because of this metaphysical sort of stuff going on. They would just
Yeah.
find the claim to be stupid.
Yeah. Well, when I was talking about it could be either, I was just talking for like water is not H2O part. Water is not H2O part. Obviously, they're not going to be like aware of metaphysical modality, but
Okay.
given what I think seemings are, like the phenomenal seemings, I think it would just be like from some underlying. It would like be some like underlying intuition or something like that. But
Yeah.
not because they like know what metaphysical modality is, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. But why would that intuition be an intuition about metaphysical possibility and necessity?
I'm not saying no, I'm not saying it's like some intuition about metaphysics. I'm just
Okay.
saying like just from like they just might like be like, what the fuck are you saying? You're speaking gibberish or whatever. But yeah, I just want to get into the but yeah, I think, but yeah, I would grant that, but I think like the folk under my semantics would say that it's insane too.
No,
Being aware of
well, they would say it's insane regardless of what the relevant semantics are. They're going to say that it's insane. But and then I think that the reason I brought up the question of like would they be saying it's insane because they have this like philosophical intuition about the nature of like metaphysical possibility and necessity, to which you said like no, I don't think that they're having I don't think that their reaction is because of this like intuition about metaphysical possibility and necessity, but I do think it is some intuition about the way they think about like reality or something. Maybe that's not the way that you put it exactly, but that's what I thought you were talking about when you said they're phenomenal seemings or whatever. But if that's true, well then the claim gets there's like even less sort of like strength like to the claim, like it loses even more traction because now like the claim that the way that people use the term is such that they're working within a framework of an essentialist account. At least it's like it seems to be that they're using it in that sort of way. Well, if you're agreeing that the way that people are using like are having intuitions about these things isn't such that it's like committing them to an intuition about the metaphysical like the nature of metaphysical possibility and necessity, so now the claim holds even less water. And I don't know, it just seems to me that like, and you can give the argument for why you think an essentialist account best accounts for the sort of why people use when people use this sort of language, but you have to, well, I want to make it clear that going forward we've established that the way that people use a term isn't in like if they were to be surprised by a claim that may have these sort of philosophical implications, that their intuitions aren't philosophical and they don't have philosophical significance in the sense that they aren't intuiting something about the nature of like metaphysical possibility and necessity, and also that like well, I think that's it for now. Like they're not making any sort of judgments regarding that, and so the first claim that they were using the language within that framework kind of gets already like it's already, we're throwing that aside because that's we've kind of basically got to a point where we're saying that that's not true.
Yeah, so this might be a little. That's why I said it might be a little backtracky, because when I
Okay.
said like the thing, I was just talking about like and when I wanted to move on to like folk, by folk, I just mean, you said it wouldn't hinge on the semantic. By folk, I mean just like people read on the topic or people like debate on the topic, whatever. And that's what I was talking about when I said folk people would, but maybe not just like the general set, like the general people, like the kids, the adults, the old people.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the water is H2O is really just the example I had for like metaphysical modality, fucking whatever, like matching, yeah, matching an essentialist account, and really just like the undergarments of the thing is just like typically when we try to like abstract this counterfactually, like other accounts like the conceivability account, you could just like say, oh yeah, I can conceive of something like just like popping into fucking existence into that. You could raise objections like, oh, what about the atoms? They would have to compose that, and it's like someone could just like change all the facts and it would be like very confusing. The heart here is just really trying to say like, when people reason about metaphysical modality, they're just like, if you were to take any object and like take it such that that object that they're talking about isn't really the object anymore, and you're just giving it a name, it's kind of just like not rigid anymore. But you can respond, but then I'd like to like get on to the argument for God. I'm not saying like as if like, not as if you granted the whole metaphysical thing. I'm just saying like progress the conversation. If you know what I mean, not as if you granted the thing.
Yeah. Well, okay. I don't think that I fully understood what the main point of like, I don't know. When you spoke right now, I don't know if I got clear as to what the main point of that was to say. I know you brought up conceivability being sometimes counterintuitive to some cases, but and that might be true. But I mean, I'd assume that when, like, let's say someone like David Chalmers is talking about conceivability, they're not just talking about conceivability simpliciter. He's talking about like positive conceivability, which requires that the person who's conceiving of something has a positive conception in which the statement about the relevant thing is something that's that thing is the case. It's like something that it's like, suppose that we're talking about something like S. They have a positive conception of a situation where S is the case. That's what it would mean for something to be like positive conceivability. So it can account for cases where you think that there's like this sort of weird intuition about things. And I could probably, I don't know, I could go check the Chalmers book out or the paper out and like maybe give a more clear account of what he means by positive conceivability, such that it actually covers these sort of cases.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you the last word on that. But can I get to my argument for God, but not as if you granted like the whole essentialist metaphysical modality stuff. I just want to get on to the argument, if that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we can leave those points regarding the nature of metaphysical possibility and stuff. Yeah, for the sake of yeah, sure.
Yeah, so the argument for God is fairly simple. It's just the argument for cause things, just in virtue of there being like, for any cause thing, it needs a cause. That would necessitate an uncaused cause, because the causer of that set can't be like can't be in the set, and that's just gonna be the gist of it.
Yeah. Do you have like a formalized version of it? And the reason I ask isn't because I want to like do this whole like valid thing or whatever. I just like, if we're making these inferences, I want to, well, it is in a sense because of the valid thing, but it's because I want to see like what exactly the premises are, so that I don't have to just kind of like try to recall them from memory and then like misquote
Of course, that's fine. You weren't doing just okay, but what's P1? I'm fine with doing it so you're clear.
Yeah.
If for any.
Yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
Wait, the topic is on theism, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, we spent quite a bit of time talking about metaphysical possibility and necessity before we got to the argument, though.
Oh, okay.
Hold up, I'm just gonna if to explain. If Okay. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Do you want conclusion one? P3. Of cause things need a cause. Before this, I'm gonna have to cut this out in the recording, man. It's like 30 minutes of silence, like 30 seconds of silence.
Yeah. And where are you going to be posting about?
I'm just gonna post it on my YouTube and just title it Hyde and
Oh, I meant
fallengod.
like the argument.
Oh, and the VC chat.
Okay.
Hold up. Yeah, it's just like modus ponens and modus tollens. Yeah. C2 is like from just C1 or whatever. You know what I mean.
Yeah, okay, let me see. If the I deny the move from like P1 to the C1. So, like, for example, take the
Yo,
set of
Fallen.
all.
Wait. I'm sorry. I genuinely like fucking like my internet like had a quantum tunnel effect and I just couldn't hear anything. Can you say that again?
Yeah, I mean, I barely started speaking, so it's fine. I was saying that I deny the move made from P1 to C1. And the reason for that is because I don't think that, let's see, I deny premise two, basically. Because take, for example, the set of everything that exists. Wait, hold up. Let me the setup for the. Wait, let me read P1. Maybe I misread it. Okay, yeah, I deny P2 because if you take, for example, the set of everything that exists, if P2 is true, then the explanation for, let's say, for example, we're trying to look for an explanation for why things exist in the particular ways that they do, as opposed to other ways. So we're making this sort of contrastive point about, explanation about the nature of reality as it is. And this could include God. This could, if God exists, this could include, abstract objects, whatever. It includes anything that exists. It quantifies everything that exists. Okay, take that set. If and we're asking why is reality the way that it is as opposed to another way? The explanation for that question, if it can't be if P2 is true, well, it can't be within the set of everything that exists. So even if God exists, then God can't even explain that sort of question. God can't give an explanation for that. So we have to appeal to something outside of everything that exists. But if we appeal to something outside of everything that exists, then we're talking about some entity, maybe whatever that thing might be, that explains why everything exists the way it is. But if that's the case, well, then that thing would be included within the set of everything that exists. unless like it's an object that doesn't exist but somehow explains, why things exist the way that they are, then I don't know. Then I think presumably there wouldn't be such a thing, because you would have to be committed philosophically to be like the only way that you could get to that sort of I don't know, claim is that if there is something that doesn't exist but nonetheless still explains why the collection of everything that exists the way that it like does, as opposed to another way. And it's not clear to me that that like I don't know, that just seems straightforwardly false to me.
Yeah, so I guess I would have to give a bit of clarification and go down some route of semantics again. For the set of everything that exists example, in the world
Yep.
scenario.
Yep.
I guess, I'm just talking about like kinds, and I would take those things to have like identity conditions. What the content of these are really trying to get at is just that within like the set for cause things and whatever causes it like can't cause the set of cause things, because it would be in the set and it would be a cause thing, and and that's really what the like heart of it is.
Okay.
So that might have been a little blunder I grant. I just didn't know how to like properly like express it.
Well, see if you can rewrite the argument, because this argument won't go through then, because my claim had nothing to do regarding whether or not there were causes, or like whether or not the set we're talking about was like including causes or not. Like I was open. It doesn't matter what it includes, when it comes to explaining things. My claim is like like on a general kind of understanding of explanation, whatever kind of ontological dependence you want to, account you want to give, whether it's like grounding, supervenience, it's like some causal, whatever it is. I'm saying it doesn't matter if we're giving an explanation for everything that exists, and P2 is true. Well, then there would have to be something outside of everything that exists, but you got a straightforward contradiction.
I'll like rewrite it. It was just that's why I was like just trying to explain it informally, because I think because I didn't have like an exact formulation of the argument.
Yeah.
But yeah, also, by the way, it's gonna be I don't think it's like a grounding relation, because these things don't like exist exist, like A doesn't exist, or like A doesn't exist in B. It's not gonna be supervenience, because like a change for the set, I think it's gonna be like depending on what you mean by causal, I think it's gonna be causal, just to clarify that. But I guess I'll just like eliminate the first, and then I'll just make it like a sub. I just like put some sub argument for that, or no, not necessarily some sub argument, but what I said about like the set, like a cause thing causing the set of cause things is redundant, because it would be in the set of cause things, and I can just include that for like just if you ask for like motivation for that, or motivation for why the cause of that has to be uncaused. I'll just like hold on. I'll just make it like P1, P2, and it's just gonna be like the other stage of the argument, and I'm just gonna rewrite the premises. Hold on. Yeah, there it like.
Okay, let's see. That's a set of cause things. It's a cause. Yeah. Why should I grant P2? Because it seems like you're treating the set like as like the collection of, each individual cause thing to be an entity in its own right that requires a further explanation.
Oh, but well, what do you mean by entity there? I just take entity to be like anything that exists.
Yeah, so like I don't know, take the collection of what's it called? I don't know. Let me think of an example. But like what I'm saying, essentially, I'll think of an example. But the point that I'm making is, why should I treat this collection as a further entity? Like for example, let's say I have 3 sticks of wood, and I have each one individually. Why should I take it that like once I have those 3 together, that forms a new object? Because this relies on treating sets of like collections of things as objects. So like say because like if I have 3 sticks, given the way that you're understanding like sets, or the way that you're kind of making claims about them, is that if I have three sticks and in my hand, there's actually four objects in my hand. There's the first stick, the second stick, third stick, and then there's the collection of the sticks. That's a fourth object. But why should I think that like the collection of them make an additional object?
Oh, for P2, the reason why it needs a cause is just because in virtue
Well, it's not why. I'm not asking why it needs a cause. I'm asking why should I treat it as a thing to begin with? Why should I treat the collection as a thing to begin with?
Like, why should you treat the set as a thing?
Yeah, like why should I treat the collection of those objects as a thing? Like as
like
an additional,
one, like
as
one
a
big,
thing.
for example, like a BCCF type scenario. If you know what that
Well, I
is.
mean, that's like it doesn't have to be as specific as that, but I'm just saying, like, if I have three things in my hand, and you're saying, okay, like the set of things in my hand is like one, I don't know, you can say the set is like a thing or whatever, but the set would have to be distinct from like its parts, right? Like the set is not, like unless you're saying the set just is its parts, but then you're not saying, but like then the sort of conclusion seems like misleading. Or at least the way that it's like formulating seems misleading, because I'm asking, like, for I don't know, do you understand the stick example that I'm giving? That like if I have three sticks,
Yeah, I
in my
understand
hand,
it.
according to the way that you're understanding the collections of these sticks, there's actually four objects in my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm asking why should
I understand, but I think, but just let me extrapolate on this because it might sound a little redundant. I think that's just gonna reduce down to like what I was saying earlier about it in virtue of it being cause. All I mean by like the set would need a cause is just for anything that's caused, it would need a cause. It might. I think that's a tautology. Yeah.
Yeah, but that doesn't address the point that I'm like the concern that I'm raising.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like. Are you saying like why would it be like a new entity or anything?
Yeah, because for like the set to need a cause, the set needs to be a thing to begin. Because if let's say we're taking like a view about sets that like sets don't exist, well then to say that a set needs a cause isn't really, like, that doesn't really make sense given that you don't think sets exist. Like if someone holds to that view, that wouldn't make sense. And I'm asking why should I? And I'm not asking like give me an argument for the existence of sets, although I probably am like a nominalist about sets. But like why should I like one another way to talk about it without getting into like the set stuff and whether or not sets exist is regarding like just taking the thinking of like talking about them just in terms of the collections of the things that you're quantifying over, right? Whatever it is that you're quantifying over, in this case you're quantifying over things that are caused, that require causes, right? I'm asking why should I take the quantification of those things to be an additional like ontological item, like that goes above and beyond, each item within the sort of collection.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really familiar with like realism or anti-realism about like sets, but you know, anti-realism or realism about sets, but this might be some what was that? Anyways, that might be some like misconstruction or whatever of what sets are on my part. All I'm really saying is all I'm really saying is like what I was just formulating by set is just like we can like pick out any cause thing it would need a cause, and then it would be some like kind of like Avicenna formulation from there, like that cause is either caused or uncaused, and we just go from there. So I am willing to admit that, but that's just kind of what I was saying.
Yeah, because I don't like one way to make the point that I was making was to like say, for example, if we take it that every human being requires a mother, the way that you're treating this sort of case of like cause things is to say that, okay, so the collection of human beings needs one mother, so therefore there is one mother for the collection of all human beings. Like obviously that's false, and that sort of inference doesn't go through. And that the way that mother is used in this case to quantify, to like give an instance of one mother that let's say maybe isn't a human being, that like is like the mother of all human beings, like that appeals to something beyond human beings, but like that inference just doesn't like go through, because like we're and the reason it like like we think that that's obviously false. We don't think that there's like one mother for all human beings. It's because we don't think that we don't treat the collection of human beings as some further item that requires a mother, right? The collection of human beings, that collection doesn't need a mother because the collection is just describing each individual human being, which maybe each individual one needs a mother, but that doesn't, you don't then get that because each individual one needs a mother, that the collection needs a mother. And likewise, I'm making the same sort of point here. Just because each thing in the collection requires a cause, you don't then get to the move that there has to be some cause for the collection.
Yeah, that might be something about like if like I don't know, like the set realism stuff, but
No, it doesn't even
I
rely
do
on the
think
set
like
realism. You can be like an anomalous about sets.
yeah,
That sort of concern is still there.
yeah. I guess I'm just saying, yeah, so let me just like try to like not like backtrack on this, but like let me try to like reformulate myself on this. All like any cause thing needs a cause. That thing is either caused or uncaused, and then like I think it like would just necessitate an uncaused thing. The possibility of this is just like I mean the contrary of this might be an infinite regress, which I can give an argument against if you'd like.
Okay, so you're saying that there's going to be, so either if we have, let's say, a collection of things that are caused, you're saying for that collection, either there's going to be a first member or we're going to have an infinite regress. And you're saying that you think that there's good reasons to think that there is going to be a first member, and there's also additionally good reasons to think that there isn't an infinite regress. And okay, if that's the way that you're construing it, then yeah, we can maybe start with the argument against the infinite regress.
Yeah, sure. So as I was saying with the infinite regress stuff, you could just take Avicenna's view where like for like a series of T states, there's gonna be like a T state where given everything or like every member, I don't want to like formulate it in a set way, but every member at a point would be like caused by another, and then like what was it called again? I forgot, but like the pot. Oh yeah, it's gonna be like some. I forgot what the relation was called. Okay, it was gonna be like some. Yeah, I think it's like some grounding or supervenience where like A B C B or no like B C D, and it just keeps going on. But like in a certain series of like for like the whoever's pausing the infinite regress would have to give up like at a time in a T state. It would have to be like caused, or like each member of the series would have to be caused, and that's just like some argument against an infinite regress of why it would like end with some uncaused being. And if this doesn't get through, we can just go the line of it being like contradictory.
Okay. Well, I didn't actually see an argument being made. I just heard that you said the way that I heard you say throw like around some terms. You brought up Avicenna or Ivancena, however you want to pronounce it, and then you talked about how he talks about T states, which wasn't given. You didn't give a definition or an explanation of what those were, and then you proceeded to just say that for any like if you have like let's say a collection, you start off. Let's say we have members A, B, C, and so on ad infinitum. Then for some member, call that member T. I think that's what you said, something like that. T is going to have a cause, but like, and this is like and then you just said that that's an argument against an infinite regress, but I don't take that to be an argument, and much
Yeah.
a reason against an infinite regress.
Okay. I'm gonna make this point and I'll be right back because I have to use the bathroom, but it's gonna be like 6 seconds. But anyways, yeah, by T states I just meant like a moment in time, like T0, T1,
Okay.
T2. Yeah, that's sort of what I meant. And did you add anything on beyond like adding me like beyond asking me what a T state is?
Well, I was just making the point, and I didn't mean to come off like as rude, but the point that I was trying to make was that I didn't see an argument being made. I just heard you say that if you have some series A, B, C, and so on ad infinitum, that if you pick out some member, I don't know, I'm just going to say N, call that member N, then N is going to require a cause. And then from that, I just heard that is an argument against an infinite regress. And if I'm maybe not recalling what you said correctly, you can tell me what the argument is, And because I don't know, because that's what I heard, and obviously that's not an argument against an infinite regress. If
Oh
you
yeah,
did,
I'll extrapolate further, but
okay.
just let me go use the bathroom first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my god, someone's already in it. But anyways, yeah, fuck, dude.
Well, if you need to go, like whenever, just like tell me, like, oh, I'm gonna
Oh
step
no,
out real
that's
quick.
fine. But yeah, that's fine. I'll just tell you when they're like out. But anyways, yeah, Avicenna's view. Um, just past the T state stuff. It's just saying like presumably someone wouldn't. Presumably the atheist wouldn't concede the infinite regress has a cause. It would just like explain itself. But the thing is like um you pick out the member and all members of the series and would need a cause, so it wouldn't explain itself. It would be explained simpliciter or whatever. It would be explained in another.
Okay.
Wait, what
Are
happened?
you just saying that the collection would be explained by another that isn't including the things within the set? If so, then that just gets us back to the sort of point that I made initially about treating the sort of collection of cause things as an additional entity, and it raises that sort of like worry again.
Well, it's not saying like let's use the mother example, right?
Mm-hmm.
um the mother example you set out earlier, it's not like that. It's because it's for like one specific chain of causes, right? Because the atheist is saying, let's say what's okay, let's just use the dominoes example, right? For per se, for like a kind of per se chain, right? You tip one domino over and then it falls over, blah blah blah. I'm not like treating it as like some set like the mother would. I'm just saying like for like some causal chain, if that clarifies. If not, then I'm not gonna lie, bro. I kind of like not as if you grant it, but we can do the same thing for what we did with the metaphysical modality shit. Because I want to move on to the stage too, and I want to see how you argue
Yeah.
against that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'll just let you have the last word on that.
wait. I don't know. I want you to get like say a little bit more because at least as of now, okay, this is what I have, and you can tell me whether or not like there's stuff that I'm missing regarding your argument. You're not okay, so we got clear right now that you're not treating, let's say, if you have some series and it's like it goes on for like I don't know, it spans on infinitely. Um, you're not saying that because like this infinite collection requires like a cause, and you're not treating it as like a thing, an additional thing over and above the members. But you are saying that for that specific chain, at least this is what I understood. For that chain, um, you know, like I don't know that it would need some sort of cause or explanation. But if that's true, well then now you go from treating the members of the collection as like an additional thing, but now you're treating the chain of causation as a additional thing, which I don't know. Is that what it's like being done? Like I'm not like I don't know. It's not clear what the move is.
Oh yeah, I'm not treating it. I don't know if you distinct like causal chains and sets, but I'm really just saying like typically the infinite regress is treated as like some sort of linear series of causes, and then then it comes back to this T states thing. So I'm not like talking about some realism about sets there, if that's what you take it to be. But if you do
Yeah,
take
no.
like, oh yeah, okay, and then that's just what I'm saying. If that clarifies anything.
Wait. Okay, I don't know. Instead of just like I don't know, maybe this will help. Just re-summarize the argument for there being like let's say a first cause or an uncaused cause, and why it rules out an infinite regress. Like I don't know, maybe just state the argument, and then that might bring me more clarity. Because as of now, I'm not understanding what the argument is. Because I don't know that there is an argument being made. I'm skeptical that there is.
The argument against the infinite regress, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Yeah, it's really just the thing. It's really how do I explain? Okay, so I'll try to just like wait. Do you want it like written out, like formally or whatever?
Either or, but I just want to like be clear as to what like each move is in the argument, and it doesn't have to be written down. You can say it informally if you want, but I want to
Yeah,
know each move that you make. I'll repeat it back to you, and then tell me if that's the argument.
yeah. So I'll just start out with like the whole thing we established about sets and causal chains. Obviously, we're treating causal chains and sets to be a different thing. And when the atheist like posits there could be an infinite regress, they're just saying for like some linear causal chain A B, and that just repeats on ad infinitum, and that would explain itself, and that would explain itself without the requirements for some like uncaused cause. But then the Avicenna view that I brought up is just some like some for any member of the linear causal chain, and at one point they were caused, so it'd just be caused by another and not well cause like literally anything in the infinite set. No, fuck, dude, blunder. Not anything in the infinite linear causal chain or whatever. And like so obviously from there that wouldn't explain itself. It would just be explained by another, in some sort of like causal dependence relationship type of way, not some grounding or supervenience type of way.
Okay. So what I understood, okay, from that was causal chains aren't sets, and when like we're talking about, let's say, some like infinite regress that is, it's talking about a collection of I don't know, like members that are cause, and it's like some causal chain, and it's typically you're saying that it's typically expressed as some linear infinite regress, and you're saying that the atheist move, which is at least a bit weird to bring up because I haven't made this move, and me and you are debating. It's not that you're debating some like generic atheist. You're saying that the atheist move to make is to say that the collection would explain itself, which is not a move that I've made. That's and I don't. It's not clear to me that there would be an explanation. It's not clear that there wouldn't be. I'm kind of agnostic as to not whether or not there would be. And then you're saying, but from that move, from the move that the atheist would make, Avicenna would say that the infinite collection wouldn't explain itself by the very fact that each member gets explained by some previous member within the set. Because if the chain was explained, then it would require a cause from another. And then I guess presumably the move is to say that that leads to like a contradiction or something. And that's what I got. So it's like it's motivating maybe a kind of argument, but it's not motivating any like a case against anything that I've said.
Yeah. To sort of like hit the nail, it was just like when I said like the atheist or the atheist move, it was just like to typically it was just like to draw out like how it's used like in a literature or something. But I take it that you think an infinite regress is possible, correct?
It's epistemically possible for me as to whether like like it's open to me as to whether or not it's metaphysically possible or not. Like I don't know. I don't think I have like I don't think that I have set like a set view on whether or not like an infinite collection is like metaphysically possible. I think that there's some that might be metaphysically possible. At least I have certain intuitions about that. But I don't know. I'm kind of agnostic on as to whether or not they are possible. They're definitely epistemically possible. But yeah, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, just going down the line that an infinite regress is possible. It's applied to some linear series of a causal chain, and the reason it's applied there for against an uncaused cause argument is just to say that there wouldn't be some uncaused cause, but rather some causal chain of infinitum repeating causes. But then the problem is just like think about it this way, just like for all members of the causal chain, there was a one point where they were caused, and it's not going to be caused by something like another cause thing or whatever. And we can go to the stage too. I'll give you like the final word on this or whatever. So like we can just kind of wrap it up. Or
Yeah,
I want to wrap this up.
I'll just say something really briefly. At least as of now, I don't think that like you've really given an argument. I mean, I think you've hinted at like some reasons to think that there wouldn't be an infinite causal chain, but I don't think that. And I'm not saying you didn't give an argument in the sense that it wasn't formal. I don't want to. I'm not saying that like you didn't write down a syllogism. I'm saying that like you gave some reasons to think, but like those reasons, like some of them didn't apply to me in thinking that the infinite chain itself would require an explanation. And if it did, like I don't know why we would have to restrict it to only like causal explanations. That's not clear to me. Even if it's only quantifying over things that are caused, it doesn't then mean that the chain itself, if it is a thing, requires I don't know, a causal explanation. And yeah, I don't know. I think that there wasn't really an argument being made to be I don't know, but that's all I'm gonna say. And you could disagree with that if you want. Like I don't know. Maybe you think I failed the track, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Great. Now for the stage 2. I'll get on to the motivations for it after I like just state the stage 2, because I know it's gonna be very, very controversial, given your views. But it's gonna be like some typical phaser act potency stage 2, where like given if act and potency were to be true, then any cause thing would have act and potency. So an uncaused thing can have act and potency, and it's gonna follow through like this full this act is purest view. And I can provide the argument for act and potency.
Well, give the argument that you gave now, and then you can give the argument for act and potency.
Oh yeah, I was just saying, okay, yeah. Well, because the argument I gave, I wanted to get into act and potency because it was like this argument is kind of like subjected on act and potency, but it's like given act and potency were to be true, any cause
can
thing.
Can you write it down? Because this is the same.
Oh
thing
yeah,
with,
sure. I got you.
Yeah.
Someone getting the dick right now. With you too. Islam is not a top 5 Muslim fighter. John's better. I agree.
Hey, did someone say Islam's not a top 5 Muslim fighter?
Yeah.
Are you like delusional?
Wait, what 5 do you have above him?
I don't have 5. I don't have.
Khabib.
I don't think I have 5 above the guy.
Yeah, well, he's saying he's not top 5. I'm asking like what 5 he has above him that are Muslim.
Khabib.
Okay.
I mean, Khabib's the GOAT, man. Like, really, bro.
Wait, wait, I forgot you watch UFC.
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah.
I would like to add, this has been a very, very, very linear good faith conversation.
Who said that?
Somebody name a grappler real quick. I need to add somebody to my list.
Said what?
Name a grappler.
A grappler? Name a grappler?
Who's not Khabib or GSP or Charles or Mighty Moss?
I guess, yeah, Islam, he's a wrestler, which is...
Oh, yeah, I forgot Islam. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he's like a wrestler. Probably one of the best wrestlers in the entire scene right now. Honestly, I have Islam above, like, prime Charles Oliveira, but we won't get on that.
I mean, you also got like Hamza.
Huh?
Hamza. I mean, he was like bullying fucking Yeah, I mean old ass Usman, but you got him.
Hamza is like, I don't really think Hamza is like, considerable what people think of him. I don't think he's like. I think he's like good but overrated. Like if you kind of understand what I'm getting. Like he's a good fighter, just an overrated fighter.
Maybe.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean,
Here's the argument, man.
okay, you hosted it.
Yeah, I had to grab it from the fucking book,
Okay.
man.
Okay, let's see. Whatever is composed of act and potency is cause. Whatever is uncaused cannot be composed. Okay, and this is presumably okay. Well, there's
It's
two.
like given act and potency are true. I can provide the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
argument for act and potency.
Yeah, and then I'm assuming that when you're talking about a cause thing versus an uncaused thing, you're talking about them in a per se chain of causation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I have an objection on the per se chain stuff about causation, but I want if you're understanding act and potency in the same way that like phaser is, if that's like because I presume that it is because this is the argument that you're giving and it's from him. It seems to me that this commits you to the metaphysical thesis that there are different ways or modes of being, ways in which objects can exist, which is called ontological pluralism. And I don't know. To me, I don't know. I'm pretty convinced of the sort of considerations that Trenton Merricks gives in his paper, "The Only Way to Be." And it's not clear to me that ontological like I don't know what the motivations are for ontological pluralism. Initially, historically, it was to say that there are like I don't know, for example, abstract objects exist in some different way, and then like the new reformulations of ontological pluralism don't actually they actually don't make the same. They don't have that sort of motivation. So they have, but so it loses that aspect of what was initially sort of captivating about ontological pluralism. So, and this is just to say that I don't think that there's good reasons to think that ontological pluralism is true, and I think that act and potency and the way that Phaser is thinking about them does commit you to that thesis.
Yeah. So no, you could grant that with the whole potential existing in the actual stuff. I just think that's gonna follow from like the argument I give, and I'll just like present the argument, right? Because all this is really just gonna hinge on whether or not I can give an argument for it.
Say that again. The last point.
I said, really all this is going to hinge on whether or not I can give an argument for it, because, like, even if it does commit itself to ontological pluralism, like, does it really matter if, like, I can give a sound argument, man?
Like, does it matter whether or not, like, the argument you posted is sound? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm, like, saying, yeah, I can grant that it, like, commits itself to, like, some ontological pluralism, but I just have an argument for it. And, if the argument's sound, it's like, who gives a shit, brother?
Yeah. What's the argument for ontological pluralism that's sound?
Oh no, it's not. It's not necessarily like the argument for ontological. It's the argument for like the act potency view, and then just entail. You know what I mean. You know what I'm
So
saying,
it's
right?
well, it is in a sense an argument for ontological.
Yeah.
In the sense that you're arguing that act and potency are different modes of being.
Yeah. So to like flesh it out, are you aware of the cup example?
Like
Phaser gives.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Like I remember reading it like a couple years back, but I don't recall exactly the way he states it. If you have a like, I don't know, if you can restate it the way he does, and you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, it's like just say there's this cup of coffee, and at one moment it's cold, but at another it's hot. The reason why it was able to become hot is the temperature, or it's just gonna reduce down to like I guess you could just say like any given moment of change, when we like break down the mechanics of it, it's because whatever actual feature, the potential, like whatever potential or no, whatever change occurred, it occurred because of this potential thing. And whenever we analyze the potential thing, it's just like rooted in an actual thing, like the cup coffee example, where like the reason why the coffee is hot is because the cold, like no, fuck, the hot temperature in the room, and then that's like gonna go down some chain.
Okay. Yeah,
Fuck,
but
I
why
need to
should I?
prepare for this one.
Yeah, how should I? Why should I treat the potential here as being robust in the sense that Phaser understands it to like be
Yeah,
emitting potential? Yeah,
like it existing in the actual future.
not that not well. It's not only that it exists in the feature, but but the feature, the way the coffee exists, is an entirely different way of existence than, for example, something that has no potential, in given some relevant respect of some per se chain. Um, like because I can imagine and think about and talk about the coffee as, like, let's say if it's hot right now, it has the potential to being cold. I can understand that in a way that doesn't make me then think that because it has, it's possible that the coffee cup can be cold, that therefore it like then exists in this different sort of way of being compared to something that can't possibly be another way, or that something that can't possibly like doesn't have any like aspect of it that can change. For example, I don't know, you might think of something like a unnecessary like mereological simple or something. Like it maybe there isn't different ways for that thing to be. And if it's necessary, well then it couldn't like fail to. It doesn't even have the potential to fail to exist or something like that. And it doesn't have potency to be any other way because it's just a mereological simple. But like, and like I don't think that those two things, like the coffee cup and that mereological simple, exist in entirely different ways. I think they have different properties and there's different maybe relations that they have to other things and so on. But I don't think that then therefore warrants this sort of pluralistic about like about existence.
Oh yeah, it's just gonna be like you could say the potency doesn't exist in like actual feature itself, but like the thing that has the feature, something like the cold coffee cup. Oh fuck, dude. Like, hold up. I'm gonna let you give your response, and then we can conclude. I should have prepared more for this, man. I didn't prepare for all. I'm not gonna lie.
No, you're good.
All right, yeah. I'm just gonna let you give your response, and then we can just like conclude.
Okay. Well, yeah. The response was just to say that like, okay, so we started off with the argument that you wrote inside chat, and then you said, okay, you have an argument for why there is actin potency, but the argument sort of in some way was kind of circular in the sense that it kind of bootstrapped in potency into like the example that you were giving with the coffee cup, because you were saying maybe like it has the potential to change, and like the way that we understand to like change is because like, or why change occurs, it's because the potential that thing has is rooted in something actual. It's rooted in like an actual thing, but that is just to say that the reason actin potency exists is because there are things that have potency that rely on things that have actuality, or that there's things that exist actually that can maybe realize those potencies. So like that argument kind of just like it's like bootstrapping itself. There's like this sort of bootstrapping circular sort of objection that I'm giving, at least to this point being made. And yeah, I mean that's my response to that.
Yeah, I guess from my conclusion,
Wait, were you concluding? I thought we were just concluding on that point.
Oh shit, bro! I want to
end
the debate. I want to end it. Oh shit.
Okay, because you said give your response and then we can conclude, which I took the response and the conclusion to be two different things.
I was just gonna let you like give your. No, I was gonna let you respond and then conclude because I want to conclude the debate. If that's
okay,
fine.
I'll just give the conclusion real quick and then you can conclude. You can have the last word. Okay, so we started the debate talking about metaphysical possibility and necessity, and the reason we started talking about that is because, well, you mentioned that like, well, you brought it up initially because you were saying that the way that your argument was going to unfold was in a way that kind of that I don't know is best fitted within a framework of an essentialist picture of metaphysical possibility and necessity, and then you said that like one piece of evidence in favor of that was that the way folk, and by folk you just meant people who are not maybe experts or writing in the field but talk about metaphysical possibility, use the words in a way that is not only best captured by an essentialist account, but that the commitments of their semantics are such that they are referencing things that are that are talked about within an essentialist framework. And then we kind of went down through that route, and then I don't know, it became clear that we agreed that people aren't actually using words in a way that's semantically committing them to this sort of ontological thesis about modal metaphysics. And then we kind of came to we didn't come to a conclusion there. I kind of gave some skepticism, and then we kind of moved on after I gave that piece of skepticism. After that, we went to the second argument, or the first stage of the argument, which you talked about, that we would have to get to some uncaused cause, and that argument, a lot of the time was spent on kind of show, at least for me, I was trying to show that the argument given initially didn't work because it required that that there is an external explanation to everything that exists that's not included within everything that exists, and that didn't work. So then you gave it a reformulation, and then I don't know, we didn't really get too far with that reformulation. So then we just kind of left that point aside. And then we talked about an infinite regress. And then I didn't really see an argument being made against an infinite regress other than to say that if there is an infinite regress, and if it is explained by the fact that each member is cause, well, then this would require that, then this fails to serve as an explanation. That was the sort of argument that I heard given. But that was an argument given against a position that I didn't even bring forward, because I didn't even make a claim about whether or not the infinite regress, in question would have an explanation. I kind of reserved judgment on that. I don't know. And so I kind of brought that up, and then we didn't get anywhere from there. You brought up the second stage argument, and then I pointed out that this argument commits you to ontological pluralism. And then you try to motivate ontological pluralism by giving an argument that in the argument, it utilized this distinction between act and potency, which was the very thing I was asking an argument for. And so I raised a sort of bootstrapping circularity objection, and yeah, that's it. I don't know if you're there, but I mean that's all I had.
I'm there. I don't feel like giving you a conclusion, man. Yeah, but we're cutting your conclusion off in the recording, buddy. Just to keep it fair. I'm kidding. Oh, shit, man. All right,
I was going to bring up